Thank you very much, Ali and Yinyani team, for inviting me for this webinar. It's very happy to be talking to your audience. Good morning, everyone, whomever joined. Hope you're having a pleasant Sunday. Thank you very much for taking your time and joining during a Sunday. Today, we are going to talk about the 5 things that you must do for a rewarding life when it comes to personal finance. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Rama Parniyappan. I'm an author of the book Zero EMI, Unlock Your Financial Freedom, which talks about leading a zero EMI life. I'm a keynote speaker on personal finance. I come with 15 plus years of experience from banking and IT industry. I'm also a distinguished Toastmaster, the Pinnacle Award given by Toastmasters International, a public speaking forum. I'm a member of Professional Speakers Association of India. I've done my MBA in International Business. It's a very quick, short intro about myself. To know more, please visit ramaparniyappan.in. Disclaimer, any views or opinions represented in the webinar are on my own and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that I may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity, including past, current, and future employers, unless explicitly stated. So once again, welcome you all. Let me begin this session with a question. Ali, are you going to paste the question to everyone in the chat?
Yes, I have already pasted the question in the chat box. The question is very simple. It says, what could financially reward you? So I encourage all the attendees to answer this question in the way they find appropriate. Whatever you feel is something that financially rewards you, please mention that in the chat box and we'll continue the discussion from there.
What comes to your mind when you read this question? What could financially reward you? Feel free to share your thoughts.
We'll give them like about 30 seconds or 1 minute time.
Yeah, we'll give them 1 minute time.
Yes. Think about it, and whatever comes to your mind, just type it in the chat box and send it across to us.
There are no right or wrong answers. Opinions differ from people to people. Really want to understand what is financially rewarding to you. Okay, money, savings. I got a couple of responses. Wow, being able to make our money work hard for us. Nice answers. I'll wait for another 20 seconds. Anyone else is going to share their point of view. Absolutely, money is financially rewarding, savings. And there is someone saying financial freedom after retirement. Of course. Financial freedom after retirement. Well, these are nice answers, definitely. Today we are going to talk about this. What could be financially rewarding? The time-proven aspects of being financially rewarding life. So one of my mentors, by the way, I have multiple mentors. One of my mentors during a lunch conversation way back in 2016 told me that he would retire from 9-to-5 job by end of 2018. I have heard this from many people before about retiring from 9-to-5 job, but haven't seen many of them retire. So I did not pay much attention to it. Then came the year 2018, in the month of November, while I was talking to him once again, he told me that he resigned, currently serving his notice period. I was taken aback. I asked him with a lot of surprise, what happened? He quietly said, hey, Parni, this was part of my plan. To retire by end of 2018, I need to resign on November 1st so that I can serve 2 months of notice period until December 31st and leave. I was speechless. The conversation that I did not pay much attention to it, but he paid a lot of attention. He was only 45 years old and he retired. I became curious. I asked him to tell me more about how he exactly carved this plan. How did he come up with this plan, and how was he able to stick to the plan, most importantly? So he told me that his dream is to get out of the rat race and do something for the society. Well, he lived in US for quite a good number of years in his career and obviously made some money. He saved it with the purpose to retire early. He was always cognizant about his spending. He came back to India around 2013, and that's when he fixed 2018 as his retirement year, 5 years. So while working full time, he bought a land in which he started constructing an apartment with 12 houses. He completed the construction by end of 2018, and the apartment was very close to his school. So from 2019, immediately it was occupied, and the apartment started giving him rental income around 1.2 lakhs every month on an average. He does not need to go to work, but still get a steady monthly income. Amazing, isn't it? This is not a financially rewarding life. Each one of us is capable of leading such a financially rewarding life, but only a handful of people are able to lead. Friends, if your life is giving you security in terms of money, somebody said money, savings, and if your life is offering you freedom to choose what you want to do, if your life allows you to remove the equation of money and the worries surrounding money from your mind, then you are leading a financially rewarding life. I hope you all will agree with me. We all know that we can earn rewards in the form of interest and your money can grow by investing. But do you know that you can reap huge rewards by investing time and attention to few basic things? Yes, you can. That's a secret I'm going to reveal you today. I'm going to share exactly 5 things, not 50 things, not 20 things, but only 5 things you must do to lead a financially rewarding life. You can thank me later, but now listen carefully. First and foremost, build emergency fund. 2 years back, my mother met with an accident when we went on a temple tour. That incident happened at Chidambaram, a place from South India, bus depot, wherein 2 or 3 men who were in the influence of alcohol stumbled upon my mother in a fraction of seconds, even before we or she could move aside. So my mother fell down, got hurt in her leg. She was screaming out of pain. She could not move her legs. She could not get up. So we called an ambulance and shifted to the hospital nearby. She could not tolerate the pain. As soon as we reached the hospital, the doctors examined her. They said she had a fracture and need a plate to be fixed. The hospital estimated the cost of around 2.5 lakhs. I got to know that this hospital is not listed for cashless treatment because I had an insurance, but the hospital is not enrolled with that insurance provided. So there is no cashless treatment option available. I need to pay the entire amount from my pocket first. Then I have to go to my insurer and reimburse with. I hope many of you are aware about this reimbursement and cashless. Now the incident is completely unexpected and I landed in 2.5 lakhs of expense. Where do I go for money? I will get it reimbursed anyways, but need to pay now to proceed with the treatment and get my mother cured so that we can come back to Chennai, my home place. I wanted to shift her to Chennai, however, realized that with such a severe pain, it is not a possibility. So I can't even shift to another hospital where there is cashless treatment available. I was left with no options when we were on a tour. So I decided to go ahead with the treatment. Fortunately, I have built emergency funds. So I paid the entire 2.5 lakhs from that corpus and got my mother treated. What if I have not built my emergency funds? All of us know that we will definitely get into such unplanned situations in the future, and we need an emergency fund corpus to meet such expenses. But the sad reality is that we seldom create such funds. We need to build an emergency fund so that we do not suffer during emergency situations. So what is an emergency situation? It might be a global recession, that may be a layoff, it may be a pandemic like Corona. It might be an all of a sudden medical expense like what I experienced in my mother's case. Any unexpected all of a sudden situation is an emergency situation. You need some money to be kept aside so that such unprepared situations can be dealt with ease and you don't get into a panic mode. We all know the importance of emergency fund, but not many people build that. There are many reasons why people do not build that. Young people who have just joined the workforce always think that emergency fund is not required for them now. They think that it is only for old people. Salary people think that, okay, let me get my hike, my promotion, and then I'll start building the emergency fund. Now you see the salary is not enough, Something that there are other priorities. I need to pay my loans, EMIs, bills. Some people are in the mindset that for emergency, I'll use my credit card. They don't know that using credit card for emergency is like getting a free ticket into the lion's mouth. Some are little confident that they can manage it somehow during emergency and no preparation is required. Friends, these mindsets are completely wrong. There should not be any excuse to build an emergency fund. Any measure to get prepared for unprepared situations, start building an emergency fund now. Treat this as savings for future. Once you have decided to build an emergency fund, the next immediate question that pops up is how much money is required. It's very easy to calculate. The thumb rule formula is your monthly expense into 6 times. By the way, do you know your monthly expenses? Do you track your expenses? One important, powerful habit that I have learned from my father during my early 20s is write down the expenses incurred. Every day before he goes to bed, he would sit and write down the day's expenses in a notebook. I have imbibed this habit somehow and follow it till now. This helps me to track my expenses and understand where my money is going. Habits are powerful indeed. If you are not tracking your expenses, then please start tracking. There are n number of apps now available nowadays. So to know how much money is required for emergency fund, the thumb rule formula is your monthly expenses into 6 times. Let us call it as X. Keep a deadline to build this emergency fund. By which month you want to finish building this? If there is no deadline, we all know what happens. We will never do that. So keep a deadline. The results will be amazing. Let us call this as. Now, you know how much is required and you know by when you want to finish building this fund. Next step is to set a monthly target. Allocate a fixed amount. Let us call it as Z. Allocate Z from your salary every month. How do you find out Z? It's very simple. Z is equal to X divided by Y. Let's take an example. If you want to build an emergency fund, say 6 lakhs, meaning 1 lakh is your monthly expenses. 1 lakh into 6 months is 6 lakhs. That is your X. Number of months required to build is 12 months. You want to build it at the end of next year. So 12 months. That is your Y. So then how much you should allocate every month? That is 6 lakhs divided by 12. Very simple. 50,000 rupees every month. You have to keep it aside so that you build an emergency fund of 6 lakhs by end of 1 year. Then you need not panic at times of emergency situations. Another important question to answer is where to keep my emergency funds. It keeps coming time and again. Should I keep it in my primary savings account wherein your salary gets credited? No, it's not always good to open. It's always good to open a new bank account to keep your emergency fund. You can set automatic recurring payment transfers from your salary account to this emergency fund account. In that way, you are mandating yourself to build this emergency fund. The benefits of doing so are plenty. You feel better as you know that you have an emergency fund to fall back. 1. 2, you have built a system to build your emergency funds. So these are the benefits of building an emergency. Moving on to the next key thing that you must do. Organize your financial documents in one place. National Association of Professional Organizers, NAPO, states that 15 to 20% of the average household budget is spent on buying duplicate of items that were misplaced or lost as a result of disorganization. I'm sure every one of you here know the advantages of being organized. Let me share you an excellent example that Mahatriya, a spiritual leader, narrated in one of his videos. Raju was busy getting ready to office. The kids are also getting ready to the school. The entire house was like a war zone in the morning. Getting the kids inside the bathroom, dressing them up, making them to eat their breakfast, packing their bags, packing their office bags. Everything happens within a short time frame of 40 to 60 minutes. Raju and his kids all set to step out of the house. His hands went to pick the car key. And oops, it's not in its place. The entire family, Raju, his wife, poor kids, all of them started searching for the key. They all got tensed. They searched all over the house. They're not able to locate it. Then they started a blame game. Raju started, I gave it to you. His wife replied, you only keep it somewhere. Raju was not happy. He said, you're always irresponsible. And his wife got upset and told, oh God, you can't even keep a car key safe. Who gave you a job, man? Finally, after high intense drama, arguments, tension, Raj found the key and rushed out of the door. They were already 20 minutes late. Remember, if your car key is not kept in its place and kept anywhere in the house, as you wish, then it will only add to chaos. Keeping the key at its place takes 1 second. If it is done so, then the retrieval of the key also takes 1 second. When you know where the things are, then the retrieval takes just 1 second. If you are not well organized with your financial records, then it will only add to your chaos. It is time to get organized. Collect your documents, put them in one place. Your life insurance policies, health insurance cards, provident fund passbooks, housing loan repayment schedules, housing tax related documents, income tax, water tax card. What else you have? Bank account statements. All the financial documents that you may have, put them in order. You can create a space in your cupboard or your table drawer to store these important documents. I know some of my friends use digital lockers, but I did not use it and so unable to recommend it. You can analyze the pros and cons of digitally saving your financial documents, especially the security aspects of it, and take a decision. Are you well organized with your financial documents? Let me start a poll here. And you can enter your answers. Are you well organized in terms of your financial documents? I want to know the pulse of the audience. I want to understand. Okay. I'll pause for 20 more seconds for your responses.
We request everyone to please participate in this poll and select the right choice, whichever you think is applicable to you.
And by the way, this poll is anonymous.
Absolutely, will not get to know. So don't worry.
Okay. Based on the responses, I see 33% of the people are well organized. Huge applause to them. Well done. For those who haven't, the 66% of the people, please get started and start organizing your financial documents. Having everything at one place gives you quicker access. It will help you to discover things that may help you. It will give you an idea how much financial assistance you can get to manage tough times. Do you know that you can take loans against your provident fund deposits? Find out your eligibility. For that, you have to keep all your documents in one place. You can take loans against your insurance policies, but you need to keep your insurance policies in one place. Being organized, you know where your keys are and where your documents are. Being organized will help you to gain a sense of control, reduce your stress, and gain clarity. Blame it on tough times and get organized. Do yourself a favor. The next one is to keep the family members informed about your finances. A survey says that almost 43% of the women in India have no idea about their husband's financial, insurance, and personal details. When the family do not have any knowledge about the money saved, invested, they are likely to live with what they have in hand or rely on financial help from relatives and friends. This means the hard work and efforts their husbands took in saving, investing, and planning financial goals for the family went for a toss. The purpose was not served, isn't it? My friend Arvind was studying at 10th standard at that time. His father was working in a PWD department, and his mother was a homemaker. An ideal small family like we see in movies. One day, Arvind's father suddenly died due to heart attack. That was an unexpected event at an unexpected time. Very unfortunate situation for any family. But when, but what happened after the death was even more unfortunate. 1 month after his father's demise, few of his relatives approached the family, saying that his father owed them 25 lakhs money. They hesitated and said they feel sorry about his death, but at the same time, the amount is huge and so they cannot forego it. They asked his mother to arrange for the repayment. Arvind's mother was completely kept in dark about this borrowing and when clueless about how to manage the situation. She said them that she is not aware of this and asked them multiple times, is it true? The relative showed her the documents wherein Arvind's father signed for taking the loan. The family do not know where the savings and investments are lying. There might be money, but they don't know where it is. His mother requested some time to repay. The situation is like adding oil to the fuel, isn't it? The series of unexpected events added a lot of stress to his mother. The family felt like sailing in a sinking boat that already had a hole. Luckily, they got a settlement money from the office and few relatives also came forward to help. The family could repay the amount. However, the trauma that they underwent in the meantime has no words to explain. Arvind's story reiterates the importance of letting your family members know about the money that you have borrowed, the money that you have saved, the money that you have invested. Otherwise, how would they know about the liabilities, the assets, the investments? The ignorance could be taken advantage of. So what should you do to avoid such situations? Very simple. Most of the complicated situations in life actually has simple solutions. All of you have to do is to ensure that your family members are kept informed about the financial transactions, like your assets, savings, investments, etc. Once you have all your financial documents organized, the next step is to keep your family members informed. Yes, you must make sure that your family is on the same page when it comes to your finances. There will be situations wherein someone else from your family may need to step into your shoes. Imagine that you met up with an accident. The hospital is asking you to make a security deposit to start the statement, and your spouse do not know where your emergency funds lie. Do not know if you have an insurance policy to cover the expenses. Do not know your internet banking login credentials or your debit credit card PIN numbers. Do you think that it's a good situation to put in your dears and nears? No. Keeping them in dark about your finances will only add more confusion to them who are already handling a pathetic situation, which is your accident and hospitalization. In order to avoid such situations, please keep your family members informed about your finances. All your financial transactions are records like insurance policies, bank details, emergency funds, equity investment, brokerage account details, mutual fund investments, your PPF, FDs, post office deposits, land, all the documents, all the important information related to your personal finance. Keep them informed so they act accordingly during emergency. Doesn't matter if you're the sole breadwinner or both you and your spouse are earning, you must be aware of each other's finances. In families where there is more than one income, most of the money would be lying in the savings bank account, not knowing what to do with the money. And at times of unfortunate situation, the other person doesn't know how to access the idle money. Let everyone know about how much money is available for the family as a whole, where it is available, and more importantly, how to access it in the absence of others. It is also equally important to have a nomination in your bank account, be it a savings account, fixed deposit, or recurring deposit, mutual fund, insurance, whatever it is. Have a nomination file to ensure your family's safety, security, and stability in your absence. If you are wondering what nomination is, in banking terms, it refers to an account holder's right to appoint one or more persons who are entitled to receive the money in case of the death of the account holder. If there is a nominee, the bank will simply transfer the funds to the nominee's account. Without a nomination in financial records, the legal heirs may have to undergo a long-drawn, tedious processes like obtaining a court order, succession certificate, or letter of administration. The process of nomination is different across assets. So contact your bank or mutual fund provider or insurance provider to assign a nominee if you have not done yet. Do it right away. Having nominees assigned to your bank accounts and other accounts is as important as keeping your family informed about your finances. Being unaware of the finances can really add to the already existing set of problems that your family might face under unforeseen circumstances. So please keep them informed about your financial records so that your family is not in dark at the wrong time. The very important thing comes next: health insurance. Buying a health insurance policy for yourself and your family is important because you all know that medical care is very expensive nowadays. Hospitalization can burn a hole in your pocket and derail your finances. It will even become tough if the person who brings in the money is now in a hospital bed. Please don't think I'm talking about very unfortunate situations, but in order to convey the message, send the message across, I'm taking some adverse examples. If you would have observed, most of the fundraising campaigns that are being floated nowadays everywhere are to meet the medical expenses. All these can be avoided by just paying a small annual premium, which would lessen your stress in case of medical emergencies. Most people are in a mindset that why should I buy a health insurance policy? My company provides insurance benefits, so I'm covered. No, it's wrong. In this world of uncertainty, it is advisable to buy a health insurance on your own in addition to the cover being provided by your company. Please note. Let me share you this. One of my friends, Karthik, he was well placed in a multinational company. After a few years, he wanted to shift to another company. So he searched for jobs, and as a result, he got an offer from another multinational company. He submitted his resignation, served the notice period, and left his current job to join the company. He wanted to take a small break before joining the new company, and so opted to join them after 1 month from the last working day at the existing company. New company also agreed. It's only a 1 month, right? Anyway, this guy have accepted the offer, so let him join after 1 month. During the break time, Karthik unfortunately met up with an accident while riding his bike. Karthik was rushed to the hospital. The doctors examined him, took the MRI, and subjected him to a few tests. They concluded that Karthik needs a surgery in his right leg immediately. Otherwise, the chance of him getting up and walking is very less. The surgery cost plus the hospital expenses was estimated around 2.5 lakhs. The hospital asked him if he had any insurance to cover the expenses. That is when Karthik realized that he is in a break, which means he is literally not employed, and all through his career he was relying only on the company insurance. He never bought a health insurance on his own. It was a huge slap on his face. It took a while for him to realize that he needs to shell that 2.5-3 lakhs from his pocket because there's no health insurance coverage at this point of time. It was a huge moment of realization. I'm also looking at the chat messages. Coming back, there are a few questions. There are a few questions. Maybe I'll park it for now. I'll take up all these questions in the chat towards the end. Is it okay?
We'll take it towards the end. That will make more sense, actually.
Yes. Yeah. And thanks for those questions. Keep sending them. We'll address all of them towards the end.
Right.
Okay. So coming back, Karthik's story. That's a huge moment of realization. Definitely a leg-breaking and a heart-breaking moment for Karthik, I would say. Fortunately, he had some savings and could pay off the hospital bills to proceed with the surgery. If in case he did not have some savings, and if he have not built an emergency fund, he would have obviously taken a loan to meet the hospital expenses. So to avoid situations like this and burn your savings like my friend Karthik, you must buy a health insurance on your own. Secondly, in a normal scenario, you come out of an employment at an old age, isn't it? Maybe 55, 60, definitely above 50, 55. So if you buy a new policy at that age, the premium amount would be higher. Most people are not aware of this fact and burn their fingers when they buy a new policy at an older age. At 25, at the age of 25, a plan with 5 lakhs coverage would cost you around 5,000 rupees. At 35, you'll have to shell out around 6,000, 20% more. And at 45, the premium cost rises to 8,000 rupees, which is 60% more. So buy it as early as possible to book the policy at the lowest possible premium. The medical treatments are expensive, and diseases do not check whether you got money or not before hitting you, isn't it? Nowadays, a lifestyle related diseases have become common, and treatment expenses are huge. The huge shift in our lifestyle has made us more prone to wide range of health disorders. Commuting, hectic work schedules, wrong eating habits, quality of food, rising levels of pollution have increased the risk of developing health problems. Most people also thinks that medical insurance and health insurance are one and the same. It is not so. Let me quickly tell you the difference between medical insurance and health insurance. Medical insurance or Mediclaim provides coverage for your hospitalization expenses, whereas health insurance provides you a comprehensive coverage. It not only covers hospitalization expenses but also post hospitalization charges, ambulance cost, compensation for lost income, and much more. Mediclaim covers hospitalization cost towards accidents and other pre-illness, meaning it is applicable only when you have pre-existing disease at the time of purchasing the insurance policy. A cashless facility is available under Mediclaim policy. So for the hospitals that do not offer a cashless facility, you can pay out of your pocket and later have the expenses reimbursed by the insurer. You need to preserve all the hospital-related documents for your case, such as prescription, medical bills, discharge summary, etc. These policies can be taken for both an individual and also for a family. Comprehensive health insurance policy, on the other hand, comes with various features such as pre and post hospitalization coverage for 30 to 60 days. Ambulance charges, no claim bonus like what we have in car insurance, free medical checkups, and tax benefits. Tax benefits is one another important factor that you could consider it to buy health insurance. You can claim 25,000 rupees under Section 80D and 30,000 for senior citizens. The terms and conditions of each insurance provider may differ. So please read the terms, conditions, features before buying an insurance policy. It's very important. Do yourself a favor by buying health insurance for you and your family on your own, in addition to the one provided by the company, so that you can shield your finances from expensive medical treatments. Do not let your hospital expenses derail your future financial plans and goals. That is not acceptable, right? We don't want our plans to be disrupted. You might have saved money for your children's education, marriage, for your new dream house, or to renovate your old house, whatever it may be. Protect those goals by buying health insurance so that you don't need to make use of that money to meet your medical expenses. You may not be stressed at times of unfortunate situations. Buying a health insurance will not only give you a peaceful life, but also a rewarding life. Okay, let me move on to the next poll. It's time for poll now. It's a very simple poll, and again anonymous. Can you please tell me if you already have a health insurance is offered by company, or your own health insurance, or you don't have an health insurance at all? Quite interesting. 71% of the people say I have health insurance offered by my company, like my friend Karthik. Right? And the 62% is the majority. Majority of the people does that. But it's time for you to realize that you also need something on your own. You need to buy a health insurance on your own so that you have better control over the policy. Mostly if you are relying on the insurance policy that was given by your company controls the maximum coverage, a number of dependents, etc. Most of the terms of the insurance are controlled by your company. And at times of unemployment, and I'm seeing a lot of cases that wherein because of coronavirus, COVID-19, unfortunate situation, there are a lot of layoffs, and people now go and rush to buy health insurance. But because of the age factor, when you enter late, as I mentioned, the insurance premium also goes up. So keep all this in your mind and buy a health insurance on your own. For those 12% of the people who bought their own health insurance, kudos to them. The best decision that you have done. I'm so happy that you are wise and you have taken a well-informed decision. And for those 25% of the people who do not have a health insurance, it's time for you to take a health insurance. Maybe you may be doing your own business, or you may be a freelancer, but definitely take a health insurance and claim those income tax benefits also. And have you and your family covered from very high medical expenses. Many of the times when you do not have a health insurance, you will go and borrow money. You take a personal loan, or you borrow from your relatives, or you use a credit card. All of them are not good practice. If you really want to lead a financially rewarding life, buy a health insurance. Okay, thank you very much for your responses. I appreciate that. And there are questions coming up. Thank you so much for that. The next one is to lead a zero EMI life. This is a book that I have written as well. Debts can drag you down and play a spoil sport for your financial plans. I strongly believe that. It is always better to wait and buy things from your own cash rather than taking a loan. Taking a loan is actually a bet on the future income, isn't it? Future cannot be predicted. We have all seen that in 2019, we never thought we'll sit at home and do. We'll be in virtual webinars all the time. Future cannot be predicted. We all learned the lessons from COVID-19. The world is full of uncertainty. Please read the biographies of people who face setbacks after setbacks. Some of the stories are not available in stores. Those stories are in your neighborhood. Those stories are of your friends. Those stories of your relatives. They are available very close to your ears. Listen to those unfortunate people. Spend time. You're not only going to give them comfort, make them feel better, but also you're going to learn tons and tons of life lessons which you will never get it from universities and colleges. So betting on future income and taking loans is not a wise man's act. Will Rogers, an American actor turned newspaper columnist, quotes, "Too many people spend money that they have not earned to buy things that they don't want, to impress people that they don't like." Very true, isn't it? He said this almost 100 years back, but holds good even now. There are hundreds of books teaching you how to attain financial freedom, talking about multiplying money, retiring early, building a retirement corpus, becoming rich, investing, whatnot. All existing hacks become useless when your wallet has a hole. You earn hard with the hope to save, invest, and become wealthy. But even before you could save, your monthly bills and EMIs ought to be paid off, isn't it? Imagine what you could save after paying your EMIs. Financial freedom is about living comfortably and having choices. But what choices can you make when you are living under the shades of a debt mountain and savings is completely out of sight? Savings is not an expense, it is an investment. Well, sounds easy, isn't it? Trust me, it is easy to implement as well. You might think, where is the money to save when the income is not even enough to pay the bills off? You're short of money all the time. When it comes to EMIs, you need to cater all your EMIs, not to attain your financial goals. The debts that surround stop you from reaching your goals faster. Forget about reaching them faster. Majority of the people do not even reach their goals because the debts they have, EMIs they must honor. Debts are real leakages that stop you from leading a rewarding life, my friends. Most people are stuck in the life because of the financial commitments. At the same time, quite naturally, they are longing for a financially rewarding life. How is it possible to have two different conflicting interests? How is it possible to reach place A by driving towards a place B? Not logical, is it? Dreams are good, but really essential to have a plan to achieve your dreams. Clearing your debts and abstaining from them is an important way to lead a financially rewarding life, else, all your efforts are not going to work. Sorry to say. Once you stop leakages, that is when the hacks will start working. You must have zero EMI to reach your financial goals and start living your dream life. Most people make use of the 0% EMI, which is now called as no cost EMI schemes to buy lifestyle related products like home appliances, mobile phones, lavish holidays, washing machine, whatnot. They time and again ask, what's the harm in going for 0% EMI? Because there is no interest outflow. 0% EMI is the driving force behind many of the purchase decisions nowadays. But you know that 0% EMI was banned by Reserve Bank of India, RBI, in 2013 itself, almost 8 years back. In its circular dated September 17, 2013, which is available online in the Reserve Bank of India website, states that the very concept of 0% interest is non-existent. Then how do these schemes still work? The sellers simply change the name from 0% EMI to no cost EMI. They continue to sell things on 0% EMI. The interest cost is in some ways passed on to the consumers, either in the form of processing fee or in the form of denying offers and discounts. If you pay cash upfront, you get a better negotiation deal. Trust me. You get a better deal and better discounts. The main business of banks and any other lending financial institutions is to give loans and earn interest. Interest is their bread and butter. Will they forego their income? Please think. They will not. In 0% EMI, the name of the interest changes, but effects do not. Remember, there is no free lunch in business. Another important point when it comes to buying things in 0% EMI is that you may end up in a habit of buying things you cannot afford to buy. You see a phone with 64 GB RAM, but your friends may say, go for 128 GB, man. Anyways, you're not going to pay now. 0% EMI, right? So you end up paying things that you cannot afford to buy. You always buy the topmost version of anything, a washing machine, a car, a fridge, though you cannot afford. Just because there is 0% EMI and you are not going to pay immediately. But try buying it with cash. You will end up buying what you need exactly. So buying with 0% EMI soon turns into an addiction and you start buying unaffordable things frequently because it is easily available. We all love instant gratification. We want to see the results quickly, not any more interested in the process. A seed needs its time to grow into a tree so that it can yield benefits. If you are not prepared to wait, then you will only get the artificial hybrid products whose effects are adverse. Hope you will agree with me. Everything should be organic, natural. For that you need to wait. When it comes to your finance, you must offer a delayed gratification rather than instant gratification. Else you will end up adding more and more EMIs, landing into a debt trap. Over a period of time, I have seen people who have more EMIs than their salary. So to avoid this, never buy things in 0% EMI. Rather, aim to lead a zero EMI life. Zero EMI life. You must get rid of your debt as when there is a hole, how much ever you pour, it is going to leak. You might never be able to fill back again. You must first stop the leakage. Debt is a leakage. You must cover that up first to grow wealth. Stop those leakages, lead a zero EMI life, take control of your finances instead of being controlled by them so that you start leading a rewarding life financially. Okay, let me pause here, take those questions. Some of them are in the chat, but you can also feel free to add more questions. After the question answer sessions, I'll take 1 or 2 minutes to summarize the points that I have covered today.
Great. Palniyappan, do you want me to read out the questions in the order that we have received them here?
Yes, sure.
Okay. We have a first question from John. And let me also broadcast that. And it says, is it what is the best? Oh, it is from Mohan actually. And the other question is from John. Is it safe to keep all our documents in the bank?
Yes, it is absolutely safe. You need to buy a locker and keep it in the bank, and you need to buy locker rent as well. And you can also keep it in your house, in your safe. If you have a safe in your house, you can keep it there as well. And absolutely keeping your documents in the bank, like sale deed of your house, very key important documents, you can always keep it in your bank.
Okay. We have another question from Mohan. He's asking, what is the best expenses tracking app?
Okay, I personally use an app called Expense Tracker. That's an Android app. I'm not sure if it is available in iOS, but what I would suggest is there are plenty of apps available in the stores. You can browse each one of them and see the pros and cons and choose anything. There are a lot of people write reviews, and the companies also provide a snapshot about the product description. So you go through that and then make a informed decision. For me, the expenses tracker, which is a free app, I also have bought a license so that I can download the reports periodically. A monthly report I can download and compare it. It also allows me to download an Excel report wherein I can create charts and do some analysis. And also you can use Microsoft Excel, which is again a best tool for you to track your expenses, and you can customize it. The apps comes with their own features. Might be they do not give you a lot of customization, but Excel you can customize. So it's again completely your choice. You can browse through the stores.
All right. We have another question from Sudha. When we save amount in a new account, it's again taxed.
I'm not sure if I got this question rightly. Maybe Sudha, can you elaborate more?
Or maybe she wants to ask that again, when the money is getting taxed, what is the use of saving that money in the account?
Okay, if that is the question, then there are a lot of tax exempted options available. There are plenty of options available. I mean, say, Chapter 6A ATC, if you're a salaried person, there are plenty of options which allows you to save money, get tax exemptions in your investment and in the interest that you earn, and then also in the maturity amount. We call it as EEE, exempt, exempt, exempt. So there are plenty of options that are available which you can actually choose and get exemption from the tax. It's not that all the investments, all your savings, all your interest that you earn will get taxed always.
Okay. We have another question here from Mohan again. Can we also discuss our financial matters with our kids?
Fantastic question. I would say why I'm also wondering, why kids are not involved in financial matters, right? The schools are not actually teaching about money. We never learned that in school. We never learned that in colleges. We never learned that in universities. We came out, we started earning money. We got money in hand, and then only we learned how to use it. Just imagine if you're going to buy a car, will you ever think about getting a license or buying a car without knowing to drive it? Unless and until you have an idea to appoint a driver. But if you're going to drive on your own, you will learn car driving first. Even for car or two-wheelers, that's what we do. But money is something which we use day in and day out for the rest of our life once we come out of college. I do not really know why the schools are not teaching money, but as a family, it's our responsibility to start teaching our kids about money so that they are well informed and they know how to handle money when they actually start earning money. In the Western countries, when the kids reach the age of 13, they start teaching them about money. In our country, I don't see that happening, but there are certain set of communities wherein they teach money. They talk about money in the dinner table. I have seen that. I have few friends, but not everybody does that. So it's very important during your dinner time or during your vacations. You must start talking about money with your kids. That is when they will start learning about. It's our responsibility and it's our duty to teach our kids about money. Thank you very much for this question.
All right. We have another question from Neerav. It's a pretty long one. Let me see. Can you see that question in the chat box, Palniappan?
Yes.
Buying another health insurance. Yes, that's the one.
Right. Buying another health insurance versus putting the premium amount as an extra corpus in an emergency fund. Which one is better in long term? Both of them actually serves different purposes, right? Emergency fund can be used for anything, not only for your medical expenses, but for anything for that matter. Health insurance, the purpose is to meet your medical expenses, which are very high, very expensive nowadays. So these two are completely different, and emergency fund can be repurposed for many things other than medical expenses. Health insurance is something which we require, which is a must for us to meet our medical expenses. So I would suggest you must have both.
All right, great. And then we have a question from Mohan again, and he asks, how can we choose the best health insurance?
Okay, I know there are plenty of options, right? When we have so many options, that is when we get confusions. And there are only one or two options that we can easily zero in on. I'm not in a situation to recommend any particular health insurance product here. That is not the objective. However, what I would suggest is you can talk to your banker, you can talk to your financial advisor or your financial coach if you have anybody, or you can simply browse in the internet. There are a lot of websites available to compare insurance policies. So decide upon it, decide upon the coverage that you might require, decide upon the number of dependents that you want to cover through your insurance policy. Do you want to cover for you, your parents, your spouse, your kids? So decide the number of dependents and decide the number of, decide the cover amount, insurance cover amount that you want to cover. And also decide upon your budget towards the health insurance. Then go and research in the market, find out which one suits to your budget and your requirements, like the maximum coverage amount that you need, and also the number of dependents that you want to cover through your health insurance. So keep these requirements handy and then see which insurance provider caters to your need. If you don't have a professional person to help you, a financial advisor or a financial coach.
All right. The next question from John: can we save our emergency funds in liquid funds?
Absolutely, yes, you can do that. It's a very intelligent question. Again, John, thank you for asking that question. You can certainly do that. Emergency funds can be saved so that it also earns money. And somebody said at the beginning, if my money works hard for me, then that's a financially rewarding life. So that instead of parking it idle in your savings bank, if you can get more returns in any of the instruments for that matter, right? And also any of the instruments that offers liquidity, that is very important. Don't get into an instrument where it has a locking period of 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So park your emergency funds in a place where it can also earn you some interest, and at the same time you can access it at any given point of time. Access it whenever you need it. So that's a good option.
All right. The next question is, what is the right age to start investing in stocks or mutual funds?
Right. That's a very good question. As early as possible is my answer. You would have all heard about power of compounding interest. Albert Einstein said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, which means if you start early, and the compound interest actually will give you a lot of benefits, multiple bounds. If you start, for example, at the age of 30 versus you start at the age of 25, given the same amount, same interest, but the maturity value of when you attain after 20 years, 30 years is completely different. And if you start early at the age of 25 or 20, 21, as soon as you get into the workforce, as soon as you start earning money, that's when you must start thinking about investing. You start early and you reap the benefits of compound interest, so that your maturity value is way above than what people at 30s or 40s when they start investing. So that's when you can have your compounding interest work for you. So start as early as possible. Savings and investment is your first expense as soon as you start receiving money.
Ravi Kumar is asking, in what percentage of our income is better to invest in SM investments? Probably he might be required to change or probably elaborate his question.
Yes. We'll come back to this question. Well, Ravi Kumar can help us to understand what SM stands for. We'll go to the next question.
Okay.
Oh, some. Okay. Ravi Kumar came back, by the way. Thanks, Ravi Kumar. Some investment. In what percentage of income is better to invest in some investments? Well, it again depends from person to person, right? It all depends on how much you earn, first of all, and what percentage goes towards your expenses. There might be a lot of recurring expenses. It might be your EMI, it might be your housing rent, it might be the salary that you pay to your domestic help, your telephone bills, your internet bills, your fuel expenses, your transport expenses. So, what percentage goes towards your expenses that you cannot avoid? Then you know how much would be left. From that, you can actually, if for example, if there is a 40 to 50% of the money goes towards your recurring expenses, then you can easily save up to 30 to 40% and invest it somewhere. And the 20% you can keep it liquid and start building your emergency fund. That is how it should be. So there should not be any dent to your recurring expenses, because really you should not go and take a loan to meet your recurring expenses. If you want to increase the percentage amount that you want to save, then you should look at the ways to reduce your recurring expenses. Like, is there a way to reduce my spendings towards fuel? Is there a way to reduce my spending towards my transport expenses? So on and so forth. So that is how you can actually try to reduce the expenses so that you increase your savings. So roughly about 30 to 40% is a good percentage to save money. Is it okay to organize financial documents? Absolutely okay. There are digital lockers available. You can browse about it. As I called out, I'm not using it, so that please do research to understand the pros and cons of digital lockers in terms of safety, privacy, and all of that, and then you can definitely organize your financial documents there.
Great. On the similar lines, is it also safe to have the documents on Google Drive?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I hope that's safe, right?
That is also safe. Yes.
Okay.
I have not heard any breach from Google Drive so far. I'm using it for almost 10, 12 years now, roughly. But I have not heard any stories about data breach in Google Drive.
Okay. Wonderful. That's all. I think we have covered all the questions.
Absolutely.
Do you
Perfect.
see any questions that we have missed here in this list?
No, I also quickly went through the chat window, and I think we have covered all the questions. We did not miss anything. This is wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions. You can follow me in LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If there are any questions, you can message me, and I'll be more than happy to help you clarify the questions. Let me quickly take a few minutes, if it is okay for you, Ali, to give you a summary.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what we saw today. Rewards definitely makes us feel happy. Rewards are something that you get in return. It is basically the result for your actions. You cannot expect rewards without doing anything. So start doing something so that you get rewarded. No one in this world would hand over a reward for doing nothing. I don't know anybody who have been rewarded for doing nothing. So you must do certain things to get the rewards. To be financially rewarded, especially, you must have your basics right. Ensure to build an emergency fund, organize your financial documents all in one place, keep your family members informed about your finances, every other detail about your money, have enough health insurance so that you do not panic and worry at time of unexpected events, and get rid of your debts. Most importantly, lead a zero EMI life. If you do these five things, I'm sure that you're definitely on the road that leads to a financially rewarding life. Once again, thank you very much for your participation, your engagement in terms of polls, asking questions, and all of that.
Yeah, we have
It's
a we
wonderful
have a
talking to
last
you.
poll, Palaniappan. Sorry to interrupt you. Just to take a
Oh,
quick feedback from participants. Uh,
sure.
this poll is asking, did you find this session useful? And you just have to click whether yes or no, whatever is appropriate to you. Great. We've got 100% yes here to this poll. Great session, Palaniappan. Thank you so much for your time as well.
Very
And
glad
thanks.
to know that it is useful. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is an ocean, right? The personal finance topic itself is an ocean, and 1 hour. I mean, we can't explain everyone a lot of things regarding personal finance. So probably we'll try and see if we can collaborate again, and we'll come up with more such sessions in the future for the benefit of our participants. This is the offer where what the one that we have discussed in on our landing page, the book written by Palaniappan, Zero EMI. Yes, now you can see that offer on your screen. You will be able to buy this book at 15% off the regular price. What you got to do is you got to just click on the link that says click to buy and save the link, bookmark that link. It's not necessary that you need to take a decision in 2 hours or 3 hours or today. The offer is valid until 15th April. Am I right, Palaniappan?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. There's
Yes.
absolutely no rush. No, take your time, think about it. If you think this book is going to help you in a way or other, then no, please go ahead and buy it. I'm happy to offer 15% discount on the regular
You have to
price.
use the code Notion15 to buy this book at 15% off. I'm putting that in the chat box. The original price of the book is, I guess, it's 149, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And on that, they'll get a 15% off by using this code Notion15.
That's
So
right.
save
Yeah.
this code, save this link. You can take a decision later as well. I would encourage you all to share this link with your friends and relatives who might get benefited by reading this book. There is a lot of things that he has explained in this book. A lot of practical inputs have been covered, which will help us in leading a zero EMI life. And thanks to all the participants for taking their time out on Sunday morning. And we know you could have been doing something better, something more entertaining, but you decided to choose to spend time with us. Thanks a lot. It means a lot to us. And we'll continue to get these kind of useful sessions to you in the future as well. So thank you once again. I hope everybody has saved that link and also the coupon code. Have a lovely weekend, everyone.